Behind the Shades.
Hello, Melissa. How are you doing today?
I am doing fabulous. How are you?
I am well. It is cold in Toronto, Canada, but one thing I will mention is warming up. So maybe I can get some of that Georgia weather from you,
Yeah, it's a
please.
beautiful day here. It's a crispy 71.
Perfect, perfect. So that's like what, light jacket weather?
Yeah, I mean, light jacket weather, breezy, sunny. It's a beautiful day.
It's been raining here for the last 2.5 weeks. It's so
Uh,
sad.
mm,
So sad. So I know we're going to get into a wonderful conversation. You want to help women date again and reinvent themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Perfect, perfect. So before we officially begin and we get into this wonderful conversation, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself, where they can find you, and who you are?
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. So, my name is Melissa McClain. I am a midlife reinvention coach. I am based in Atlanta, Georgia. I have a one-on-one coaching platform. You can find me at melissamcclaincoaching.com. That's MCCLAIN coaching.com. My handle on Instagram is Melissa McClain Coaching as well. Facebook, Melissa McClain Coaching.
Perfect. So take us right from the beginning of it all. When you decided to help people become better, help women find themselves, help women date again, is that part of your journey where you had to find that for yourself, or are you doing it for another reason?
I feel like it's definitely part of my journey. So I empower single women, single and divorced women over 40 to reinvent themselves, to find and attract soulmate love, and to age like a goddess. So that's my passion. So when I think about my history, I mean, I am a product of a single mom who raised two kids by herself. So I know just seeing the struggles of raising two kids and everything that goes along with that, and being the primary caregiver and not really having time for yourself, or even thinking that you have time to allow love in your life. So I think at the crux of it, that's where it comes from. And growing up in that environment, I would say that I struggled for years dating. I would say as a child of that environment, I didn't have the example. I didn't have an example of a two-parent home. So I really struggled in relationships for a lot of years. And I think a lot of that struggle, now that I have invested in myself and can have done the 360 turn, came up from a place of unworthiness and not believing in myself and not knowing what I had to offer somebody else. And when you come from that place of not being crystal clear, not loving yourself, not knowing what you have to offer, you just don't attract the right people. You attract the energy that you're putting out. So when women work with me, that's where we begin. We work on coming from that place of deep self-love. So you're not wasting a bunch of time. You're not going to waste a bunch of time with undesirables, because in midlife, we don't settle. Okay, we've settled in our life. And at midlife, this is not a time to settle anymore.
I'm not even 40 and I can't even work out dating. So can I be your first male client, please? Because I'm still
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. I remember in my 20s, I had this dream that I was going to be married, two
Mm-hmm.
kids,
Mm-hmm.
and ride off into the sunset.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my 30s, no kids, not married, still riding off into the sunset, though. Believe me. So when you say that there's undesirables, I want to touch on that because I absolutely agree. I think we spend too much time on people that
Mm-hmm.
we know deep down in our heart are not going to stand the test of time.
Yeah.
So when you're helping these women go through that and understand that, what are some of the roadblocks that are maybe preventing them from saying, hey, this is going nowhere. Let's cut it now and try to find someone where it can go somewhere.
I mean, there's so many things to unpack. Like, number one, I was coaching someone the other day who just felt like she couldn't even say, listen, you're a nice person, but let's just be friends, because it's not going to go anywhere. So we have to have like the umph, the balls, when you're crystal clear, it begins with getting crystal clear. So like, what is it that you deeply desire? Are you wanting to get married? Do you want a long-term relationship and not be married? Do you want to have children? Like, whatever it is, like just being really authentic with that. But then also, as you meet people, sharing that with people, not changing what you want, because maybe there's parts of this person that you like, and you're like, well, I'm going to kind of mold myself to him. No, it's like you're coming from a place of deep self-worth, deep self-love, you know exactly what you want, and you're going to verbalize it, and you're going to use your voice. To answer your other question, I think people, they just don't listen to their intuition. Those red flags, the pink flags, and that's just like the little nudge inside. That's when you go on a date and you're like, it's that, like, this person is a nice person, but it's just, that person is just not for me, nothing personal. And then people don't listen to that. And they think, well, they start changing things. They start like settling. Well, I guess I could just like settling for less. And that's just not what we do in midlife. This is bullshit. This is a time to step it up. We get to a place in life where we get to ask for what we want, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And when you use that muscle of your voice, you just get stronger, and you get stronger every time.
For me, sometimes I look at dating as like this curve where, and I think maybe this impacts women a little bit more, where you have people that come into your life, and because you're in your 20s, you're willing to entertain any and everyone, right? Because you're still trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then you reach a certain age, and I think women reach this sooner, where they're like, hey, I want a family. I need to figure this out a lot faster than my male counterparts because of biology, right? It's a little bit different. And I think where I come in and where I feel a little bit saddened for women is, to your point, where they reach their midlife and they're thinking, Johnny down the street, I don't really like him, but he says some of the nice things some days when I'm feeling kind of low. How about if I give him an opportunity, knowing it's not going to go anywhere? And as you mentioned, they're picking from a pool that they know is kind of rotten or poison in a way, but you have a choice then, right? Do I die alone? Or, to use your word, do I take on someone where I'm like, yeah, this kind of feels like I'm settling? Does that happen to some of the clients you deal with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, listening to your intuition is key. Like, we have to, and you can meet people anywhere. So some people, I mean, just, they have a hard time online dating. That's just an avenue. You can meet your soulmate. Like, we want soulmate love, right? We want deep, sexy love, like best friend love, like getting clear on that. But you can meet that person anywhere. It's about being magnetic and sparkly and learning the art of flirtation. And I thought it was really interesting because just even having eye contact with someone, smiling at people, letting them know that you're available. And when you look at the statistics, or you hear from men, a lot of people, they just look away. You may look at someone, they just like look away. But it's like, no, and they're doing it like out of fear. Like, even though they're totally available, when you do that, you don't make a man know that you're available. Men get a lot of pressure. It's like, you're supposed to be the ones that ask a woman out, and you're supposed to lead, and we want you to lead, right? But no one really teaches a lot of men that, on how to do that. So it's okay to kind of lead and do things without like really leading. Like, for example, if we were out and I saw you across the room instead of leaving. Like you might be someone who's shy. You know what I mean? Like you might be someone who's
Maybe,
shy. Maybe, but you might be
maybe.
someone who's shy, who's not going to come up, even though if we catch eyes. But you know what you could do from a place of self-love? You could walk over, I could walk over to you before the night ends and give you my card and say, hey, just in case you're single, you know, if you asked me out, I would say yes. I mean, how would it feel if somebody did that to you?
I would feel great because women don't approach men.
Right. This is what I'm saying. Right. They don't.
I would feel great. Like, ladies, get a card. Approach men. Approach me. Like if you want to go that route. But you're absolutely right. So continue. So what are some of the ways that women can give signals to men saying that, hey, I am interested? Because you're right. Sometimes you make eye contact. Like if I'm looking at you and you kind of turn your head away, I'm going to take that as she's not interested or she's spoken for, right?
Right. Right. Well, a big thing is eye contact and smiling and flirting and just kind of wherever you go, you know, being kind to, like, showing love to everyone, whoever you're at the grocery store, and you're just being friendly, because when you show up with that energy, that magnetism, that is the energy that attracts a whole nother kind of man. Right. But another thing, you could walk up to someone and say, wow, your girlfriend must be a really lucky girl. And that gives you an opportunity to say, I don't have a girlfriend. You know, I'm single. Great. Fabulous. You know, it's just like little things like that. We put the ball in the man's court 100% of the time. And why not just kind of be coy and funny and step it up a little bit if you actually are interested? Because too many times, and listen, when I was younger, I would do it. I would be the one that would look away, you know, just because it was more out of insecurity. I would be the one that would look away. I would definitely not be the one that would walk up to you and be like, hey, your girlfriend must be a really lucky girl, you know, to give someone that opportunity. You know, I didn't do anything of that. This is like a more mature Melissa. This is advanced.
So from like beginner to intermediate, now she's like, hey, I'm gonna go get what I want.
Yeah, like you have to go.
Right?
Midlife is not a time to settle, right? It's the time a woman becomes the queen of herself. And a lot of the women I work with are either, you could be divorced, you could be single and divorced, you could be single. I mean, whatever it is, you know, something's not working. And actually you don't have time to like play around, right? When you're in midlife, you have to kind of be realistic. Okay, I'm 40, I'm 50. How many more years do I have here? When we're younger, we don't really think about it like that. We think we're going to be here forever and ever, and that's it. And then you get to 40 and 50, 60, you might be like, I really only have a good 30 left. What are you going to do with that 30?
Do you think there's a point where, as you mentioned, where we should be having that type of conversation where it's like, hey, I'm approaching 40. I'm in my 40s. I'm approaching 50. What does the next 30 years of my life look like? Do I want a companion? Do I want to be married? Do I want a boyfriend? Do I want a girlfriend? Because I had that type of conversation in my late 20s. And I was trying to say, hey, I want this type of life. Let me pursue it. But as you mentioned, some people don't realize that until they're at the halfway point or just slightly over. So is it too late for them, or do they still have the opportunity to say, hey, I can right this ship?
It is never too late. I don't care if you're 80. It's never too late. It's never too late. It's never too late for love. It's never too late to get what you desire. It's never too late to get over yourself. I mean, what keeps people stuck are the stories that are running in their heads. And a lot of times it's shit that happened when they were 8 years old, 10 years old, 15, you know, just the things that keep you stuck. That we like to call it like your younger self, your inner child, your shadow self. I mean, this is like real life stuff. It's not woo-woo stuff. It's like real life stuff, and we all have it. I mean, I would say that on this planet, we have a lot of children running around in adult bodies, right? And you can tell by the way you act when things don't go your way. or when someone breaks up with you, or taking the dating process way too seriously. It's just a date. Like, just go out and have fun. Like, just because, we start talking and we've been talking for 2 weeks and you make that date means so much. And then if it's like, you go out, you had a good time, and maybe you don't hear from him again, it's not personal. It just means that at the end of the day, you're probably not going to like everyone that you go out with. So why should everybody like you? It's all the moons and stars have to be there. But if you just show up like you're meeting a friend, you're having fun getting out, it's light, that's just better energy, and that's conscious dating. So that's, one of the things that I teach is conscious dating. And that's really showing up from a place of deep self-love. And when you show up from that place, you have a more empowering narrative.
So take us through sometimes how the dating prospects can be for the women, especially women who are divorced, who may feel that they don't want to, or maybe they can't remarry because they've been there, done that. They may have children, but now after so many years, they're back on the dating market. How do you coach them?
Oh, well, the first thing we need to do is, instead of just randomly going out there, let's get crystal clear on what is it that you want now. Okay. Like, what do you want? Especially if and it depends on the history. Like, we need to heal our wounds. Have we healed the wounds from this past relationship? Have we consciously completed this last relationship? Because relationships end, and we don't have to make it a bad thing. Marriages end. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. And a lot of people walk around with that, because it's really like till death do us part it's kind of like an old narrative. That's a long time to be with someone, especially when you start younger. I mean, let's face it, really, more than 50% of marriages end up in divorce. And that's the true fact. And then people go on to remarry, and then people get divorced, and sometimes people go on to marry after that, but it's all about, and this is a whole nother conversation, but having just like a good divorce, meaning you two part ways, but the family stays intact,
So Melissa, I think that's a beautiful point, because for me, I tend to date women that are a little bit older just because some of the things that I want out of a relationship. So for example, I don't want children, right? So that puts me in a situation that's maybe more advantageous to older women, because they may have children or they may have been divorced, versus someone who's younger, who's closer to my age. They may want to have children, and they know that they may not be able to get that from me. So I love that you said that divorce is not basically the end of your life, in a sense, right? Like, you can still find love at 80.
Absolutely.
And I think that is absolutely key. So for audience out there who may say, you know what, Melissa, I was married 30 years. Back in my day, I had to take the ferry to the farmer's market to meet my husband. Now you're asking me to swipe left and swipe right. Like, how do you deal with the culture shock to those women who are coming out now, dating much older, but they've been out of the game for so long?
You need to hire a coach. I mean, really, why? This is what I think about coaching. Every athlete, every professional athlete out there has a coach. Like, every human should have a coach too. Why try to wade these waters by yourself? Why? Like, we need to work through the muck. And yes, online, and there's so many platforms, and it's just really, again, when you're clear on what you're looking for, you don't spend time on the crap. I'll have clients say, well, on his profile, he only has 3 words. Delete it. Well, we were going back and forth and then he disappeared. He did you a favor. I mean, like, it's just, is there a lot of game playing? Of course. but is there true people out there that are looking for love? Absolutely. And I'm an example. I met my husband 15 years ago. We met on eHarmony. And before we met on eHarmony, we both dated a whole ton, so we both dated a lot. And then we got together, and we've been together since our first date. And that was on the eHarmony platform. So there's lots, and it's very normal these days. It's not taboo. And back then, 15 years ago, I don't know how long online dating had been around, but 15 years ago, thank you. Sorry, my son, very sweet. He just
try it after it's good.
Okay. I told him I'm doing a podcast interview. It says, try this lemonade. I made it for you after your call. Isn't that sweet?
That's very nice.
Yeah, it's very sweet. I lost my train of thought. So yeah, so online dating is a platform. It's definitely a platform that I think everybody should use. But again, not taking things personally. And I think that people need to, because you can buffer with it, just like people buffer with TV, they buffer with alcohol. You could buffer and be like, swipe this and that all the time. But if you just kind of set time in your schedule and say, you know what, I'm just going to do this 20 minutes a day, I'm going to drop in over here. And then you do it, you don't have it all consuming. And then, like I said earlier, you can meet people anywhere you go. So that's one avenue. And then as you get out into the world, practice flirting, practice smiling at people, smiling at men. If you find someone attractive, smile at him and don't look away. He'll love it because he's not used to it.
What are some other ways that women can do that? Because I totally agree with the smiling and the eye contact. Is there any other behaviors that we can assist them with to let them know that, hey, handsome hunk over there, I think you're someone I want to get with?
Well, like I was saying earlier, don't assume that, listen, guys can be kind of dumb sometimes. I don't want to say the word dumb, but what I mean is you could literally be talking to someone and you think you're flirting back and forth. And then he doesn't ask you for the number. And then someone else may go up to him and be like, man, she was so flirting with you all night. And you could be like, she was? I had no idea. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I mean. Don't assume that every man is they can be shy too. And it's okay. And it's okay if you put yourself out there. It's like building a muscle. Even if you put yourself out there and he says, hey, I have a wife or a girlfriend. Okay, great. Tell her she's a lucky, lucky woman. That's it. I think we need to use our voice. We need to ask for what we want. We don't we have to go for it.
I think sometimes it's the fear of rejection. That's probably the best thing I can offer, because some women don't want to put themselves out there and be rejected. And then some men don't want to be rejected. But what I try to tell people is that, hey, I've been there, done that. This woman I've gone up to and they said no.
Right.
And that's perfectly fine. They're within their right to tell me no, regardless if they're in a relationship or not.
Right.
But I think, and it's something that you touched on earlier in this conversation, is that we take dating, especially early on, so personal, right? If it's one date and done, what did I do? Oh my God, how can he do that? How can she do that? Or if it's something, let's say you've been on a few dates and there's that intimacy aspect and you don't hear anything in a couple of days and you're like, was I good enough? Did he like that move I did? Does she, there's all these things that there's this reality that we create in our minds, but it's just that it's in our minds. Do you experience that with some of the people that you coach?
Oh, definitely. Well, nobody wants to be rejected, right? And part of the dating process is you're going to be rejected. It's just part of it. Not everyone's going to like you, just like you're not going to like everybody else. Right. So you just practice and you don't take anything personal. And I liked how you said, because I was going to ask you, have you ever asked out someone and they said no? Guys get rejected all the time. Right. So ladies, if a guy has the balls to say, even if you're not attracted to him, throw him a bone and just say, but thank you for asking, just be kind about it. You don't have to be nasty and be like, no, get away from me. I mean, it took balls for him to come up to you and say that. But let's talk about, I think it's a good conversation of when to sleep with somebody, like when to sleep with somebody. And really the key is to make him wait, my friends. I think that people have sex way too early because men and women are just so different. Like we're you give a woman an orgasm, she thinks you're in a relationship. Like you guys are like together. Seriously, right? Like,
oh Lord, please help me.
But you know what I mean? It's different than a man, right? Because women are we're like a slow fire that you're like tending to. So if you're able to really bring her there, that's something special. But in the end, what about if we got back into like longer courtships, like actually getting to know somebody without throwing, you can like setting boundaries. I think sometimes women get talked into things because they're having fun and the passion's there. Listen, we meet people sometimes and we're like, man, the passion's there. We want to like rip their clothes off. We both feel the same way. We know we probably shouldn't have a couple cocktails. Then we do, and then we regret it. It's like, why did I do that? And then sometimes it doesn't go anywhere. And it's really, again, not something personal. He could have thought, you know what? I don't think I really knew her, or like whatever. Because when we're dating, we need to have conversations about, are we going to be dating other people? Like, so when Michael and I got together, probably on our 6th date, he was like, I don't want to be online anymore. I just want to be with you. I want to be in a relationship. I agreed. And that was that. We were on the same page. I think people make assumptions because just assume that if you are online dating or anything, assume that this person is dating a lot of people until you have a conversation, And so that's why it's important to restrain, my friends. Have a self-pleasure practice, Definitely have a self-pleasure practice and try to restrain from having sex too early. I don't think nothing good has ever come out of having sex too early.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I absolutely agree. I have a hard rule where if I'm on a date with someone, and if there's drinking, well, I don't drink, but if she's drinking, then I will not have anything intimate with her because there's alcohol involved. That's like a hard rule or a boundary. Let's use that word. It's a boundary that I set. Also, I like that you mentioned the online dating and the assumption that you're dating multiple people, because that seems to sometimes get lost, right? Like I can be online. There's a situation where I was online dating and I went on, I think 2 or 3 dates with one person. We didn't have that conversation, right? About, are we exclusive? Are we this? And then when I matched with someone, this was years ago, when I matched with someone, I went on a date with her. It turned out to be her friend. Right? So now there was a conversation, and my perspective was that 1, I didn't know, and 2, we didn't have that conversation. But as you point out, in her mind, she thought something else, or at least she thought whatever it is that she thought. And I think that gets lost where it's like, in my mind, I know the conversation that I'm having, but you're not having it with someone else. You're having it with yourself, right?
Yeah. And so I just want to know, were you intimate with her?
No. We went, we had like dinner, and then we went to, where did we go? I think on the 3rd date we went, I think it was rock climbing. So there was no intimacy on that level with either or.
Right.
Right. But I guess because she felt that it was going somewhere, that conversation didn't happen. But I'm more than willing to have that conversation, because in another example, it took me months and I actually had to go to the person. I was like, hey, you're actually coming over to my house. We're spending time at each other's homes. Where is this going? Because that's a little bit different than you and I just meeting at a restaurant once or twice a month, right? So I want to clarify that with her. So what would you tell me in that situation, or younger me?
Well, you're doing the right thing. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not having a conversation, this is the thing. Like, women will assume, here's a big mistake I see women doing. They start talking with someone and we're emotional, right? We're feminine. The feminine energy is like very emotional, and we're getting along and we're getting attached. And so we're just assuming that you're just doing that with us because we stop dating other people. Don't stop dating other people. Like, just keep, doesn't mean you're sleeping around. It just means that you're like feeding the funnel. It's like sales, right? Just keep going out. I mean, if a man wants to be with you, he will like climb mountains to be with you, right? So don't take yourself off the market. Don't take it personal. Like, this is typical. I mean, we have to stop doing this. You know, you can't assume you're in a relationship unless you have a conversation with someone and you both agree, you know what, I really like you. I can't even see myself dating anybody else. I want to explore this with you. I don't want to be online anymore. I would just want to be with you. And guess
I
what?
wish.
Go
No, go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just going to say, and depending on how far that goes, it's okay for you to bring it up too. Like, if you're feeling like, you know what, I don't want to date other people, listen, people don't want to talk because they don't want to get rejected. They feel like if they don't have the conversation, then it won't hurt so much. But it would be good to know, because I could be like, listen, I could have that conversation with you. And then you're like, listen, Melissa, I think you're great, but I really, you know what, I don't want to be in a one-on-one relationship. I want to date you, but I want to date other people. And that's okay. There's nothing personal. That's why we need to get clear. What is everybody looking for? So then you're not 2-3 months down the line. Believe someone the first time. If he says, I don't want to get married, I don't want to have children, I don't want to be in a relationship, believe him. Don't think you're going to fuck him and change his mind. You know what I mean? Like, don't think that you're going to go in with your sexy self and he's going to be like, oh, forget it. I now that's it. I never thought I wanted kids and now I want children. You know, no, just believe them. It's okay. Right?
Yeah, she walks into your house with that sexy lingerie with nothing underneath, and she's like, "Are you sure you don't want to have kids?" Right? And some people think that. Some people honestly think that they're going to be able to change the person through their actions, but it has to be a conversation where it's like, "Hey, this is what I want." And it's okay if the person turns around and says, you know what, right now, I don't want to be exclusive. It reminds me of like when someone proposes and they tell you no. Is the relationship over? Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe the person isn't ready. And I think that's better. I'd rather someone tell me that, hey, Train, you know what? I like spending time with you, but I'm not ready for what you want out of me. I think that is completely fair and better.
We all need to this is like adult conversations. Like, we all need to grow up and have an adult conversation. Just like, I mean, listen, just like when you start having sex with people, it's like, you need to talk about sexual history. Like, before you should have sex with someone, are you having sex with other people? When's the last time you had sex with someone? You know, when's the last time you had an STD test? This is just like adult conversations. This is what mature people do.
I wonder
People don't want to
why.
do that either.
I know. And I wonder why that doesn't come up where it's like, hey, when's the last time you did this? When's the last time you got this checked out? When's the last time you entertained someone in this way? Whatever terminology you want to use, at the end of the day, it's basically what we want to know. Are you sexually active? If the answer is yes, is it with everybody? Or is it just say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I was with this girl. We dated 6 months. I was with this girl. It was 12 months. Right? As you mentioned, these are adult conversations. And I wonder, the reason why many of us don't have it is because we don't want to be judged.
You might not, right? You don't want to be judged. You don't want to admit and listen, you can ask questions and people can lie. People lie all the time. Just as I was going to say earlier, someone could just to get in your pants. They could say, oh yeah, well, maybe I'll want to have kids, maybe. But, I would say we got to go back to listening to your intuition. If you really were listening, there's the little nudges. I mean, people are they're going to continue to unfold. So if you don't rush into something, I mean, what if you actually waited for 10 days at a minimum before you had sex with somebody? Think about how you could really get to know somebody if you waited. And then if someone was waiting that, and if you had that, if you really like somebody, he's going to respect that, right? You would respect that. And then you might even get to the point where it's like, hey, because I'm not looking just for, and maybe you are. And if you're just looking for a lover, then say that I'm just looking for a lover. But if you're really looking for someone long-term and you're like, listen, I don't want to sleep around. And then that's when you have the conversation, are you sleeping with other people? I think that, and especially if you're getting there, if it's just going to be us, I mean, I would feel comfortable if we both went and had an STD test, and then that way, and then you share your tests and the tests are clean and you can have unprotected sex and get to know each other. But I think sometimes, I don't know why people just they're ashamed, or, you don't have to say everything, but I mean, it's like, listen, we're not virgins, right? What's the movie, The 50-Year-Old Virgin? I mean,
the 40-year-old virgin.
The
Yeah.
40-year-old virgin. I mean, these, they're probably, people are divorced. They have kids. We've had lovers in our life, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think we have to get over the fact that we are virgins. They just, hey, we all are having sex, but
Right.
Are we having responsible sex? Because that's different.
Yeah.
What's something that you would want to share with the next generation of women who are trying to figure it out and say, Melissa, I want to be like you, but I have these stumbling blocks in my path. What advice do you want to give to them?
I would say at the crux of it all, like for your career, for your love life, for just anything you want to do in life, it comes back to you, right? Nobody can make you happy. You are never going to find a man who is just going to make you happy. Like, you have to make you happy. That's a lot of pressure. Like, you have to love yourself. And that means you have to work through all your shit. And we all have stuff to work on. So people are showing up in life with 50, with invisible suitcases worth of stuff. And, the people that are working through it understand, like I said before, that we all have like this wounded child within us. We need to befriend this inner being and not let this inner being drive the bus. We need to learn to have a relationship, to love our younger selves. We need to strap that younger self in the back seat, get him all cozy so that we can get in the car, in the driver's seat, and drive. Because that wounded child shows up in insecurity, not believing in yourself, and not listening to your intuition, not, listening to those pink and red flags, settling for less. I mean, the list goes on. And it really kind of comes back to that. So we all have to do that inner work. So I would say, hey, man, do it early on. Like, find yourself a good coach. Could you read a book? Sure. It's really hard. Find someone that you connect with, but who can help you work through all of this. And then also, if that person is dating, just to kind of show up in the dating process in a whole new, like with an empowering narrative, just learn, don't just make light of it. Like, just don't take everything so personal. I mean, it should be fun. Listen, if you're not having fun in dating, then you're not doing it right. It should be fun. That's it. Like, fun.